Hey everybody, welcome back. Today's video is going to be kind of a follow-up video on the last one where we introduced the new NX Bravo. In the last video you got to see a little behind the scenes look at what we go through when we're doing all the design work on a new model. Today, well, we've had it playing for a week and I'm going to give you some feedback on it, and we're going to talk about how it fits into our product line and kind of help distinguish it from some of our similar models that we offer. And to kick it off, what I want to do is I want to go back in time a little bit into the history of GR Research and where we started and kind of how we wound up with two separate product lines that were similar, because we're kind of doing it again. Originally, I started off with what we called the AV series kits. And the AV was obviously for audio and video. The kits were designed for 2-channel stereo play and home theater options. And there were a lot of different models to fill out the home theater needs for all of our customers. And we sold a lot of them. And while we were selling a lot of those models, I was continually experimenting with all other types of drivers, like ribbon tweeters and air motion transformers and different types of woofers and all the different brands and manufacturers, and also wound up doing a product line with Creative Sound Solutions back when it was owned by Bob Reimer. We did a whole series of speakers using a 5-inch Eton woofer and the RM Cantus ribbon tweeter. So I've worked with almost every ribbon tweeter manufacturer type out there. I've tried it, tested it, done stuff with it. And Bob and I sold those things till all the Eton woofers that we ordered were all gone. I think we ordered 500 woofers and we split them up, and he's pretty much sold them in Canada. I sold them in the U.S., and we had a pretty successful run of those. And during that time, I also experimented with a brand new tweeter made by Bolinder Graebner, later called the BG Corporation, and it's a planar magnetic. And it started with the Neo 3, then they came out with Neo 8s, and I did custom Neo 8s and a line source, and we took the Neo 3 and placed it into the AV series model. So we had the same models, but with the BG Neo tweeter. And it was different in that the planar magnetic tweeter was fast, detailed, had high resolution, really fast spectral decay, but it wasn't harsh or bright. It wasn't in your face or overbearing. It was still smooth. And unlike the ribbons, it would play down much lower, and it had much better attack and dynamics. And it was different in contrast to the ribbons. Plus, it could be used in open baffle applications because it played the same out both sides. And so we did a pretty good run of those, and it was not always the favorite speaker of the two when we make comparisons. Like, for instance, I'd have a customer come over and audition their AV3, which was a floor standing speaker. It was rear terminated transmission line, MTM with our dome tweeter. And he would listen to that, and then they would listen to the N series, which was the N3. Same speaker, different tweeter. And a lot of times the customer would gravitate to the Neo tweeter and say, yeah, it definitely has more resolution, detail, it's faster, I like that sound. And then I'd have another customer that'd make that comparison. And they'd say, yeah, that's a nice sound, but to me, the soft dome tweeter just has a smoother sound. It's something I enjoyed more, and listening to it over a long period of time, it's something I'm more comfortable with. Or my room isn't treated, and I feel like it's going to be more forgiving for my room or my electronics. And so there's a lot of people that still went with a dome tweeter versus the planar magnetic tweeter. And I'll show you some of the N3s. I have a pair of them in stock here, and I shot a little footage of them this morning. This pair in particular is a pair that a guy in the Denver area built the cabinets for us, and it's MDF with a really high gloss automotive finish, and it was expensive to have them made. He charged me $3,000 for the cabinets, and we used that pair to demo that model a lot, and we sold a lot of speakers based on how those sounded, and even did a spin-off and designed some products for Carnegie Acoustics that were using that same driver configuration and same transmission line and things like that. So it was a very successful run. And then BG sold out to Christie Digital. And when Christie Digital bought the company, they pretty much pulled all those drivers from the consumer line. We could no longer get them anymore. Even as an OEM, they wouldn't sell them to us anymore. So that whole line just kind of disappeared. And about the same time, we bought out all the old inventory from AV123, which was all the X series models. And I designed that whole product line for that company. And it was based around this T26 tweeter. So what we did then was we basically replaced the AV series with the X series and kind of redid those models with a better dome tweeter. And we've been selling lots of X series models for quite some time. And along this time, a few years back, we worked with a manufacturer to help develop our own Neo 3. And we made some changes to it to make it a little bit better than the old BG. We used a different type of film, and we used copper terminals, and we did get it to sound better. But we still only used it in open baffle applications because we were just having the tweeters themselves made. So we had to have it milled into the front baffle. And we used it in open baffles like the NXtreme and the NXotica, where the whole speaker is full open baffle. And the whole concept of the NX series was a cost no object line. In other words, it was designed based on performance without cost being a factor. Like, what's the best caps, the best woofer, the best everything that we could use. And we developed this woofer that you see in the NX Studio over here to be used in those models. We did an 8 ohm and a 16 ohm version. And the 8 ohm version you see here in the NX Studio monitor. And we went all out with the design on it. Polymer chassis, lightweight paper cone, copper shorting rings in the motor structure, and all copper coated motor structure. I mean, we did everything on this thing. Venting through the front, solid aluminum pole piece, copper coated, the works. And the result was one of the best sounding woofers there is on the market to this day. And we used the 8 ohm version to develop what we call the Studio Monitor. And the Studio Monitor uses it in a sealed box, and the Neo tweeter is in an open back configuration. This whole top area here is just grill cloth, and the whole top is open. So it's still somewhat open baffle, and it has that open, airy sound. And it literally is one of the best sounding stand-mounted speakers that money can buy. And we've only used those tweeters in open back configurations. We've played with them a little bit in creating a back cup and doing a lot of like what BG did for those things. And we 3D printed some parts. You saw it in the last video, and 3D printed some face plates and all that stuff. And we began doing a lot of testing with it. The result of all that testing is what you saw in the last video. And we created a version of the X Bravo, calling it the NX Bravo because we're using the Neo tweeter. It definitely is different than the Bravo, but it's very similar in the way it sounds. It's definitely different than the Studio Monitor. It's somewhere in between. It falls in between in price points and in performance. Comparing it to the regular X Bravo, which has a very natural sound. It's very layered. It's very transparent. It's easy to listen to. It's got good resolution. It has perfect measurements. It checks all the boxes. It's a great bang for the buck. And the whole X Series product was designed to be the best bang for the buck. Like, nothing in those price points really touches the X Series models. And it still holds true. Those things dominate those lower price points. But when we drop the Neo tweeter into it, it does bring up detail levels, resolution levels. Cymbals sound more like real cymbals. It's more airy, and you hear the attack and the decay off of the cymbal. Brass section, trumpets, saxophone have bite to them like the real instrument does. Upper levels of the guitar, those harmonics, they're more real, they're faster and more vibrant sounding. And the spectral decay is crazy fast because this thing plays down to 1 kHz versus the dome tweeter we're using. We're crossing at 1800 hertz, which is still low for a dome tweeter, but not as low as crossing at 1 kHz like we're doing with this Neo tweeter. And there's huge advantages in that. I mean, there's almost an entire octave that it's covering that the woofer in this model's having to cover. And as good as the M130 is with this lightweight paper cone, it's no match for a planar magnetic driver that has virtually no moving mass to it really at all. It's so lightweight and so fast. So even in the imaging and soundstage layering, it just checks all the marks, man. It's good all over. Now, is it as good as the studio monitor? No, the studio monitor still has advantages. The studio monitor still has a better woofer. The tweeter is in a full open baffle. It does have a little more of a natural, more relaxed sound about it. But it's also a lot bigger. In fact, set this down here. I'm going to give you an idea of just how much bigger. As you can see, the studio monitor is pretty deep and it's a little bit taller. So studio monitor would be a big speaker to put on a desktop. NX Bravo easily work as a desktop speaker, easily. Small room applications, even medium-sized room applications. If you filter the lower frequencies off of this thing, they can take a lot of power and play plenty loud if you restrict how low the woofer actually plays on these things. And we've done that. We've had them set up in here with triple open baffle servo subs, and man, do they sound huge. The whole sound stage is huge, layered, flat to 20 hertz. I mean, it's an incredible combination, and we're really, really happy with kind of where this thing fell in the product lines. And we're going to kind of go back through some of those older models and revamp that line again with the Neo Tweeter. So look for the center channel with the two 16 ohm woofers, and that we've got a Neo Tweeter in the middle. That's floor standing version like the old N3s. We're going to redo that one with this tweeter as well. So I would say this little speaker will put the beat down and a crushing on 90% of the speakers out there, especially stand-mounted speakers. And I know that sounds like a bold statement, but think about this. Customers send us speakers from almost every manufacturer all the time. We have, at any time, we may have half a dozen to a dozen different speakers from other companies that have been sent in for upgrades. And we like going through those things and seeing what they did and what parts they used and how they measured, and completely dissecting those speakers and designing upgrades for them to make improvements. And we do that all the time. And I see pretty much everything out there. And if it's really expensive and it's really high in levels, I see it at shows. I hear it in different places. I mean, I've got a pretty good handle on what's out there because we get almost everything you can think of sent in, especially at these price points. And I can tell you, there's nothing really at these price points that are going to compete with this. I know because we have them in here all the time. So, and if you want to challenge me on that, please do. Please come over, bring whatever speaker you want. You can sit in here and compare them. You can do whatever you want with them. And the proof is in the pudding, as they say. The performance speaks for itself. In this case, these things really, really speak for themselves. And we'll try to get some more of them built out. I know all of these that you see up here on the table are all just done in Duratex. We typically do that with demo models or prototype models rather than just leaving them in MDF. If it looks like the measuring and testing goes really well, we'll build out a pair and just coat them in Duratex. For one, if it's cheap, and if after listening to it for a week, if we're not happy with it, we don't want to launch it as a product, it's no big deal. We really didn't spend anything in it, as far as spending money on the cabinet. If we do like it and we're going to use them for demo models, and this one we certainly will, they get moved around a lot. They get banged into things. They get chipped. If something happens, you can just take Duratex and just touch it up, and you'd never even know it. This stuff is super tough, and it's super easy to touch up. So we Duratex stuff a lot when we're just doing demos. So a lot of the speakers you see in here are just done that way. But in this case, we'll do some nice cabinets and some nice veneers, or some nice veneers maybe with a hardwood, just front baffle that this stuff mounts in, and we may send some demo units out every now and then or something. We haven't done that in a while. I may want to start doing that. This one definitely is spectacular and would do really well in reviews by whoever reviewed it. So we may start doing that again. And I just want to encourage any of you guys, especially any of you who are in this North Texas area, if you want to come hear these things, you can definitely come listen to them. We'll try to get some really good audio clips made of them so you can compare it to the original file, and you can see how accurate they are and how closely they sound to the original file. They don't add a lot of coloration or anything like that. They're just clean, fast, detailed, and a lot of fun to listen to. So that's it for the new NX Bravo, and I appreciate you guys watching the video. We'll see you guys in the next one.